you want to go down to the courthouse right now and look at the chain of title for a deed, you're going to scroll through all of those books and pages, and you're going to see the previous deeds, the Scrivener deeds, anything that's edited that piece of property. With blockchain, it's going to be in a digital version of that. And one of the other ways I've heard it described a lot is this idea of a chain link fence. So every transaction is going to be one particular link in that fence, and you are just hooking them together. And once they're hooked, they can't be undone. They're extremely tight, extremely secure.
Welcome to the Rental Property Owner and Real Estate Investor Podcast, brought to you by the Rental Property Owner Association, providing benefits and services to real estate investors and rental property owners for over 48 years. With your host, Brian Hamrick from Hamrick Investment Group.
This episode is sponsored by Green Property Management, managing everything from single-family homes to apartment complexes in the West Michigan area. Find out more at greenpropertymgt.com. And RCB & Associates, helping real estate investors and small business owners navigate the complex world of health insurance and Medicare benefits at rcbassociatesllc.com. Hello and welcome to episode 346. As digital technology advances, and we see more and more automation and systematizing of every aspect of the real estate transaction process, it's not hard to imagine the disruption blockchain technology will introduce for real estate investors. But what are we talking about when it comes to blockchain technology? What is it? Who will it affect? When will it be a reality? And how can you take advantage of it as a real estate investor? My guest today is here to help answer those questions. Megan Templeton is a real estate attorney with Royal Legal Solutions and the owner of Iron City Law out of Birmingham, Alabama. Megan, welcome to the show.
Hi, Brian. Thanks so much for having me today.
Tell us a little bit about your background with blockchain technology and also kind of give us the 101 of what we're actually talking about.
I have been an attorney for, getting close to about a decade here now. Inside of that, I've also been a real estate investor, not only in real estate directly, but also alternative assets. And so when crypto really started getting big, it was a hobby and interest of mine that I really wanted to learn a lot about more, particularly before I invested. And then as I started investing, wanting to get those strategies in place. And so an important part of that for me was really learning about blockchain, because blockchain is so integral to the crypto world. So I've spent a lot of time doing seminars, teaching, learning, just really staying involved inside of this crypto space, as well as asset protection strategies. And so as of today, I have my own law firm in Birmingham, like you mentioned. I also do a lot of consulting for other businesses and startups. One particular that I'm here representing today is Royal Legal Solutions. And so inside of that, I do a lot of work with real estate investors. I've really tailored my career toward helping investors and consumers have those asset protection and the consumer advocacy models available to them. And so now when we're talking about the crypto side of it, what we do, particularly at Royal Legal and then also at Iron City, is we help folks learn how to invest wisely in crypto, which can be a little bit of a volatile market, but also understand what crypto is about and how it's utilized, how it's held, those types of actions. And so blockchain is something that we talk about a lot. I think there's some confusion about blockchain. When you mention it initially, people think, oh, it's another type of crypto. So it's a Bitcoin or something like that. And it's not. Blockchain really is just the ledger that you're going to hold your crypto and your assets on. Now, blockchain's not related directly to crypto. There's other uses for it. We're going to talk about how you can use it for real estate here today as well. But it really is a digital ledger that is a very secure system. It's one that we haven't had in place prior to the past decade or so. And it allows us to take these transactions, put them in a secure location, and know that moving forward in the future, it's really a tamper-proof type of environment, at least as of today. So I think that's the best way to describe it is, blockchain really is a digital ledger, and the possibilities that opens up for things like real estate and how we can hold chain of title, how we can move smart contracts. It's really going to disrupt the industry, I believe.
For those of us who are visual learners, can you give us a visualization of what blockchain is? When you say it's a ledger, is it like a book that when you go down to the municipal office and they look up the deed or the title information, it's like a book that contains all of that, only it's all in digital format? Is that kind of what it is? Or how would you describe it visually?
Yeah, that's a great starting point for describing it. I think it really is. It's a digital ledger. Like you said, if you were going, if you want to go down to the courthouse right now and look at the chain of title for a deed, you're going to scroll through all those books and pages, and you're going to see the previous deeds, the Scrivener deeds, anything that's edited that piece of property. With blockchain, it's going to be in a digital version of that. And one of the other ways I've heard it described a lot is this idea of a chain link fence. So every transaction is going to be one particular link in that fence, and you are just hooking them together. And once they're hooked, they can't be undone. They're extremely tight, extremely secure. So from a concept perspective, I think that's helpful to understand how you are attaching these items together. They really are linking. From a practical perspective, thinking of it like a digital book is probably a good representation as well.
And where is this information held? Is it all in the cloud, on the internet? Is it in a vault somewhere? When you think of security and where it's located, how do we know that it actually is as secure as people say it's supposed to be?
So there's a couple different ways you can do it. And this kind of gets in the crypto world a lot. You'll hear things like cold wallets, you'll hear hot wallets, you'll hear crypto mining and mining stations. And so what that means is you can have some that's related to the concept of the cloud where it is digitally available. There's also things where you can think of it more if you put it on a hard drive. And you can't access it unless you got access to that hard drive, which is going to be password protected. So there's different ways to store it. But I think for most investors, most folks, they're going to be using the hot wallet type of system, which is going to be the like cloud akin type of system.
Take us through a typical process that investors go through when they're buying a property. They have to look up the title information. And then when they close, they go to the title company, or they have a place where they go to close and they're signing all these documents. How does blockchain change any of that? And how can it change those things?
Yeah. So right now you're describing the traditional model of you have a contract, you have the 30-day close. If you've got a mortgage or anything on it, you go into the closing office, you sign those documents, it gets recorded at the county, and then it's on the record. So where blockchain can come into that, and it's still being developed, but really, we'll be able to have smart contracts, which is going to take that first piece of the contract piece, and it's going to make it templatized. It's going to make it easier to input. It's going to take out the parties involved. It's going to make it less expensive and more secure. And so that's what we call the smart contract concept. And then you get to the closing part where you've got to sign those documents. Well, those documents can then be hosted on blockchain, and that's going to give a secure location where those documents haven't been altered after they've been executed. And then you've also got the title, the deed, which I think is the important piece on that same thing. Once it's executed, it can be it's on the blockchain, then it's preserved. It cannot be edited. And alternative uses, though, that come into effect with real estate is, one I like to really talk about is this idea of fractionalization of real estate. So right now, when you go to buy a property, you're going to purchase the whole property, or if you've got partners, you're going to purchase your percentage of the property, whatever it may be. And, as you get more partners, you get into things like syndications. There's ways to do it, but with blockchain, we're able to really take properties and fractionalize them. So you can have investors who are going to spend as little as $50, and they're going to be able to get an interest in this property using blockchain technology, using crypto if they want to. I mean, there's companies like, Lo-Fi, and there's various companies who are making it where you can invest in these assets, particularly real estate and some alternative assets as well outside of that, but doing it in a very small, very manageable, approachable way to do it where investors can cop in without having to spend, that $100,000 plus.
I'm still hung up on just the practicalities of executing these contracts and creating those links in the chain link fence, because my partner and I, we own a number of smaller residential notes, both performing and non-performing. Some of them are contract for deeds, and there's a lot of nuance. There's a lot of times where there's clouds on the title. You have to go back to, 3 or 4 levels as to who had the note previously. How is blockchain going to make that better? Or is blockchain just not going to even acknowledge those properties? It's only going to input the brand new properties with no clouds. I mean, how do you actually make blockchain functional in what is essentially a dysfunctional world?
I think there's 2 components to that. One, you're going to see less issues coming up with the documents originally. So you're not going to have those clouds because you're going to have things like smart contracts where it is more templatized and there's less room for error. A lot of the times, being an attorney, I can speak to this. I've done it a lot where I will create a deed. I'll have an error in it. I won't realize it till it's been recorded. And then I've got to go back and do a Scrivener's. But when you have things like smart contracts, you can create the technology where it's checking for those things as you go. So you're not going to have the problems on the front end. And then The second part of that is, when you're looking at a property, you're looking at this clouded title, you're like, how much research is it going to take me to fix this? How do I get in contact with people? And having blockchain technology is going to allow you to have all that information much quicker and in a much more secure location. So you're not going to have to do as much research. What's in front of you is going to be verified. And I think that's the important piece, and that's going to allow things to move quicker for you as well. So if you're looking at a property, you do a title search, you see it's got issues, or if you've got a note you're looking into, you want to see any type of the payment history or anything. Now you're going to be able to pull it up. You're not going to have to look for secondary and third resources, and it's just going to make things a lot smoother for you.
Is this a reality now? I mean, are there municipalities that are actually allowing the use of blockchain? Because I know from my experience, and I'll go back to our notes, every city, every township, every municipality does it differently. They all have different rules. I mean, there's a lot of wackiness out there as far as how titles are transferred and registered and all that. And is this even being used right now anywhere in the country?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, and then the answer is it's kind of a mixed bag. It's being used for certain activities. So like right now, if you were to say to go to your local municipal courthouse and ask them if they use like blockchain technology, they're going to say absolutely not. They're probably not going to know what it is, honestly. And so inside of the traditional functions, that's something we're going to see changing, I think, probably in the next 5 to 10 years. But you are seeing companies that are making it where you can get into these real estate things. So, I mentioned one earlier. There's a bunch of them that allow you to do syndication type deals and things like that. So it's not at the county level. It really is still at a corporate type level at this point. But, I think what I tell people, it's kind of akin to the idea of electronic notaries. We saw that for a while, people wanting to do these remote electronic notaries. And it just took a little while for the counties, for the legislation, things to catch up. And I think that's going to be the same with blockchain as well.
Yeah, so I do approach blockchain with a certain amount of skepticism because I've just seen the dysfunction that's out there in the way these things are done. And I wonder, is there a potential for it to add more dysfunction because once it's in the blockchain, going in to fix something that was entered incorrectly may not be possible? There's
always that possibility, right? And particularly when something is a new type of service or new type of technology that like this is. And so there probably will be some trial and error. And I don't want to dispute that. I think that the way it is built from the foundational point, it's got room for less error because it's Q&A'd so heavily. But I definitely think you're right. It may be a rough transition, particularly in some places, maybe some of the more rural counties where it's going to take a little longer for the logistics to get worked out and things like that.
What is your focus, Megan, on blockchain? Like, where do you fit into the equation?
So right now, it's really just kind of an education piece. And then I do a lot of consulting on how to get involved inside of crypto. And that's where I talk about blockchain the most is to crypto investors, but also, particularly at Royal Legal where I'm at, putting a big focus on staying on trend with the companies that you can use for real estate that utilize blockchain and just keeping up to date with the changes in it, the legislation that's coming down the chain. So right now, my focus is really from an educational perspective and then a personal investing perspective.
Other than buying crypto, have you seen it used in other non-crypto type environments where it's actually been effective and it's made the process smoother and simpler?
I've got some startups I'm involved with that, I can't speak too heavily to because it's still in beta and it's still a proprietary, but I am involved in some startups that are going to be doing alternative uses for blockchain that are not specifically crypto related.
Now, I know you can't talk about your startups, NDA and all that, but where else can we expect to encounter blockchain in the future?
Oh gosh, let me make sure I stay inside of my NDAs. Yes, I think you're going to see blockchain impacting the educational realm, some things inside of the political funding realm, but that's probably as much as I can say right now.
I'd like to take a moment to tell you about Green Property Management. Not only do they manage everything from single-family homes to apartment complexes in the West Michigan area, they also manage my entire portfolio. So I can tell you from personal experience that their unique flat fee management style is worth a closer look. If you feel that your property isn't operating to its fullest potential, then Green Property Management can help you take a holistic approach that will save you money, eliminate your headaches, and increase your net income. And if you're a property manager interested in applying Green Property Management's model, give them a call at 1-866-95-GREEN or visit them on the web at greenpropertymgt.com.
If you're thinking of leaving your W-2 job and becoming a full-time real estate investor, one of the greatest costs you must consider is healthcare for you and your family. When I made this transition myself, I found the whole healthcare insurance process to be confusing and frustrating. That's why I'm glad I met Chad Creasy
at RCB and Associates. Chad is a professional health insurance agent who helps real estate investors and small business owners understand and choose their best healthcare options. And best of all, his services are covered by the insurance company and won't cost you a dime. If you live in Michigan and are expecting a change in your healthcare insurance coverage for any reason, or losing employer coverage or transitioning into Medicare, then you owe it to yourself to contact Chad Creasy at rcbassociatesllc.com.
Megan, what is the difference then between acquiring an interest in real estate through fractionalization, through blockchain, and then just plain old-fashioned syndication? What is the difference there?
I think the main important piece to focus on inside of that is just how accessible blockchain is making fractalization with real estate. So right now you've got the traditional model of syndications where you can invest in just a portion of a property and get your returns. But with that, the barrier to entry can be somewhat overwhelming for folks. Typically they want you to be an accredited investor to be able to do so. You've got to have a higher net worth. With this idea of using blockchain with fractionalization, you've got companies like Realty, which allow you to invest with as little as really $50. And so investors are able to get inside of the investing world, check it out. With it, you can also get your returns inside of various cryptos if you wanted to do that. But, I think the foundational pieces that's different from syndication is just the barrier to entry is so much lower.
And is it more liquid then to get in and out?
It can be. It depends on the company you're working with. I've seen different corporate structures around it, but I definitely think on the majority of it, yes, it is easier to get in and out of than traditional syndication would be.
And as far as the laws and the rules surrounding raising money, are they already in place to allow for this type of technology, or do we have to wait for Congress to catch up with it?
Yeah, it's a little bit of the Wild West still. It is something that, the SEC and Congress, everybody's still looking at. So you haven't seen the laws and regulations come down yet. We've got some indications of what they might be just from drafts that we've seen. But right now it's still unknown. And I think you also see that come in where you'll have the taxation of like arts. Is an NFT considered an art or collectible, that type of thing? And so really around this whole idea of crypto, blockchain, alternative use of real estate in this way, you're going to see a lot of regulations coming in the next couple of years as the government does more investigation and more think tanks around it.
So at what point and how long will it be before blockchain technology really takes a hold and people are using it on a regular basis? I mean, are we a year out, 5 years out, 10 years out? When is it going to happen?
I think the 5 to 10 range is probably more obtainable. It is moving at a quicker speed now than it has in the past, but because the legislation is still uncertain, I don't think you're going to see it really take root for another couple years. And with where we're at, with midterms coming up and things like that, I don't think it's going to be a big focus to get that legislation necessarily finished. So I would say probably the 5 to 10 year range is going to be more applicable.
Could you kind of put it all in context for us? Why is this even necessary and better? What are the benefits of blockchain and why should we be excited about this technology?
There's a lot of fraud and a lot of mismanaged when it comes to documents in any industry, but particularly with real estate. It is a very paper heavy industry. And so blockchain is going to allow you to have an environment there's going to be a lot less fraud on, and there's going to be a lot less need for third parties, because that is something about real estate as well. I mean, you think about when you do a real estate transaction, you've probably got a lender involved, you've got an attorney involved, you've got a real estate agent involved, you've got both buyer and seller, you may potentially have a consultant. So there's just a lot of parties involved. With blockchain technology, smart contracts, you're going to eliminate those parties, you're going to cut costs down, you're going to be able to manage the documents better, so you're going to cut down on fraud, things even like wire fraud, which as an attorney has always been one of my big problems or thought focuses of. And so, things are going to get cheaper, quicker, and just more secure.
Megan, thank you so much for coming on the show to talk about blockchain. How would people get a hold of you or find out more about you?
So the best way to get a hold of me directly would be Megan at royallegalsolutions.com. That's MEGAN at royallegalsolutions.com. Another alternative would be to go to the royallegalsolutions.com website. On side of that, we've got a quiz you can take where it talks about what type of investor you are, what products you might be interested in, and get a feel for what needs we could help with. And that'll connect you directly with a member of our team as well, one of those possibly being myself. And so direct route would be email. Another good way, though, is just to go through the quiz and see exactly how the company that I help with can help you.
Thanks so much for coming on the show to talk about blockchain. It's an interesting technology. I'm looking forward to seeing how it's going to affect me and other real estate investors. And I think you've done a great job kind of laying it out for what we can expect. So it's been a real pleasure talking with you.
Thanks so much, Brian. I appreciate you having me.
I want to thank everybody for listening to this episode. I'm your host, Brian Hamrick from Hamrick Investment Group, and you can find out more about me by going to higinvestor.com. That's higinvestor.com. And you can also ask questions and join us on Facebook by going to RPOA, Rental Property Owner and Real Estate Investor Podcast. This episode was sponsored by Green Property Management, managing everything from single-family homes to apartment complexes in the West Michigan area. Find out more at greenpropertymgt.com. And RCB and Associates, helping real estate investors and small business owners navigate the complex world of health insurance and Medicare benefits at rcbassociatesllc.com.
You've been listening to the Rental Property Owner and Real Estate Investor Podcast, brought to you by the Rental Property Owner Association. You can find out more at rpoaonline.org. If you enjoyed this podcast, please go to iTunes to subscribe, rate, and review.